I want to just talk for a few moments in this section about how Samuel prepared himself or positioned himself to be able to receive the word of the Lord or hear God. What did he do to be able to get in that place where God spoke? The first thing he did is he was set apart from birth. And when you and I make Jesus Lord, we automatically, maybe you didn't think about it, but when you make Jesus Lord, you set yourself apart. You set yourself apart from the world. You set yourself apart from maybe how your friends are living. You set yourself apart to say, God, you're my Lord. I'm going to live for you because that's what matters. Samuel was set apart from birth. His mom said, this is the arrangement that I have with God. I have this son, and he's going to be gifted back to you, and he's going to be raised in the temple and not in my house. So he was set apart. Have you set yourself apart to hear God? Maybe something that you need to do this morning to say, wow, I haven't set myself apart. But I need to. Then you'll be in position to hear the voice of God. The second thing is that Samuel grew in his understanding. If you look at the previous chapter, verse 26, chapter 2, verse 26, it said, and the boy Samuel continued to grow in stature and in favor with the Lord and with men. Sounds a whole lot like a statement made about Jesus, doesn't it? In fact, it's almost identical. So Samuel grew in his understanding. He grew in reading the scriptures. He grew in understanding how to worship God in the temple. He grew in how to serve in the temple under Eli. There's a lot of things that he was understanding in his life, and he just grew in understanding. And if you want to position yourself to hear the word of the Lord, then just grow in understanding of who God is and his nature and his love for you and his forgiveness for you. Just grow in that, and you will position yourself to hear the word of the Lord as you do. Chuck Perry, that's been to our church, he was our son's mentor in ministry school. Chuck had a rather unusual conversion. He wanted to know God, and so he just moved to Colorado and got a cabin way out in the woods by himself. And he just set purpose to get to know God. And he said as he was there one night, there was a light that came. It came from outside of the cabin, and it came into the cabin and came in and around him. And that's what he said he knew that was Jesus. He just instinctively knew that was Jesus. And so for the next several years, the way that Chuck grew in his relationship with God is he had a conversation with Jesus in the cabin by himself. And he noticed after several years that his closeness with God began to wane. He didn't know he needed to read the Bible. He was just having a conversation with God. And as a result of that, then that conversation that was very real and close and personal when it started began to wane and begin to get distant. And so he recognized the fact that he didn't feel as close to God as he once did. And he asked God, what's wrong? And God said, you need to start reading my word. He says, oh, I didn't know I needed to. And so he started reading the Bible. Guess what happened? As he started reading the Bible, that closeness and personalness that he once had with God through conversation came back. Imagine that. God's amazing, isn't he? See, God doesn't leave us sometimes when we don't read the Bible for a stretch, but he gets distant. And he feels like he's gone. He's not, but he feels like to us he is. And if we would just get back, he would come close. Amazing story. The third thing that Samuel did is he honored the authorities in his life. Samuel honored the wishes of his parents, his father and mother, Eli the priest. Obviously, he's growing up inside of the temple. He could have kicked back against that. He could have said, why am I in this temple? I need to be home with my friends. What am I doing here? He could have not listened to Eli. Have you ever read about Eli's sons? They were wicked guys. I mean, they were wicked. They were having sex with women that were coming to worship God, and they would take them in back. I mean, that's just horrible. And that's what Eli's sons were doing. He could have copied them. He could have been influenced by them, but he wasn't. Because he honored the authorities that he was under. He honored his parents. He honored the priest. And as a result, that put him in position to hear God clearly when God spoke. And so that's a recognition as well. It's not something that that we have to do. It's something that we delight in doing, as honoring the authorities around us. And in doing so, we hear God more clearly. And then finally, Samuel had his definitive moment. It was the moment when God showed up. It was the moment that God woke him up and said, Samuel. And he, again, through a process that I've just read, became to realize that God was speaking to him.